toy.
Hippos Bottomus. Written by Jeanne Willis. Illustrated by Tony Ross. Hippopotamus had a spotamus on her bottomus.
"It's measles," said Weasel. "You sat in a breezle and caught a disease-all. There's only one treatment, exposing your seatment to sunshine and heatment."
But Potamus got Hotamus, Grumpimus and Grotimus, and still she had the spotamus.
"It's jungle fever," said Beaver. "I believe we should leave her to scrub her skin with soot."
So Potamus got Sootamus from Nosimus to Footamus, but the spotamus stayed put. "It's Hippolumps," said Lion. "It's Potamonths," said Shrew. "It's Hippoflu," said Rhino, but no one had a clue.
"I'm a doctor," said the Croc. "Do you feel any pain when I stroke it and poke it? Let me try again. A needle in the bottomus will rid you of the spotamus."
Despite his perfect shotamus, the cure was in vain. "It's a blister," said her sister. "You should pop it right away." "It's an ingrown hair," said Brown Bear. "Just smother it with clay." "It's notamus, what rotamus, you clotamus," hissed Snake. "This lippy hippopotamus is allergic to cake. Cut out chippo-chocamus. Eat lettuce for a week." But the spot on Hippos Bottomus stuck firmly to her cheek. Then all sad and snotamus, there came a little lad, who searched around a lotamus for something he once had. He knew he'd put it somewhere, but alas, he had forgottamus, until he saw the body of the spotty hippopotamus. The small boy had a sneaky peek, and tweaked the hippo's bum. "That's not a spot," he squeaked. "That's my bubble gum." Slug Needs a Hug. Written by Jeanne Willis. Illustrated by Tony Ross. Once upon a timey, there was a little slimy, spotty, shiny, whiny slug. He was wet and weedy, very, very needy, and always greedy for a hug. His mummy didn't hug him, it began to bug him, and he wondered why, oh why? "Is she never snuggly, because I am so ugly?" said Sluggy with a soggy little sigh. He spoke to other creatures with very different features, and asked them what he ought to do to make himself more huggable, less slithery and sluggable, for sadly Sluggy didn't have a clue. "Perhaps if you were furrier and fluffier and purrier," said Kitten, "then your mum would hug you tight." So Slug put a woolly hat on, with a picture of a cat on, and a furry jacket, just in case she might. "You look funny, honey. If you want a hug from Mummy," said Bird, "you need some feathers and a beak." Piglet roared with laughter. "If it's hugs the Slug is after, he needs trotters and a tail and a squeak." With Trotter's tail and a coat, and beak and feathers, Slug met Goat, who told him that he looked a little weird. "If you need a hug, my friend, you need horns stuck on the end, and get yourself a handsome goatee beard." Slug did as Goat suggested, and he sensibly invested in some horns and a moustache made out of string. Moth looked aghast and muttered, and he whispered as he fluttered, "Slug, you need some wings, you silly little thing." Slug made himself a pair. He couldn't fly into the air. His wings were scarlet petals from a rose. Although he smelled delightful, Fox declared that he looked frightful, and he'd never get a hug without a nose. "Should I lose the beak?" thought Slug. "If I really want a hug, would Mummy love me more with just a snout?" There was very little space to wear them both upon his face, but Sluggy did, in case of any doubt. Slug gazed into the brook at his astonishing new look, and barely recognized his own reflection.
"If she doesn't hug you now, then she never will,"
said Cow, and she gave the slug a head-to-tail inspection. Hoping Cow was right, Slug chugged slowly home that night, to show his mum his fabulous disguise. But after all he'd done, she didn't recognize her son.
"Mother, it's me," said Slug. "Surprise!"
"But I love you as you are. You're the sweetest slug by far," said Ma. "You have been very greatly missed. You're beautiful and charming. If I could, I'd hug you, darling." But alas, she had no arms, and so they kissed. I'm in Charge by Jeanne Willis, illustrated by Jarvis. There was once a little rhino who was really rather large, and from the day that he was born he bellowed, "I'm in charge." So when his darling daddy tried to tell him what to do, he cavorted and he snorted, yelling, "I'm in charge, not you." And when his muddy mother told him it was time for bed, he shouted, "No, I will not go. I'm in charge," he said. He did exactly as he pleased and threw his weight about. When Warthog tried to cross his path, he tossed him with his snout. He scattered all the meerkats, and he startled poor Giraffe. He squashed Baboon's banana when he would not give him half. Elephant was larger, but young Rhino didn't care. It wasn't hard to charge her if she could not see him there. He sneaked up to the waterhole and gave his tail a thrash, then barged into her bottom. "I'm in charge," he said. Kersplash! And so it went until the day he found the mango tree. He didn't want to share the fruit. He said, "It's all for me." And he put his little foot down, and if anyone came by, he shouted, "Shoo! No fruit for you. I'm in charge, that's why." No one dared to challenge him. Then Pygmy Mouse came by. She was tiny but so hungry that she thought she'd have to try. "No, you are not in charge," she said. "The fruit is ours to eat." But Rhino would not listen, and he stamped his feisty feet. "I'm not listening, la la la. I'm in charge. Agreed?" he yelled, and so he never heard the sound of a stampede. "Stand back," said Mouse to Rhino. "You'll be sorry if you don't." But Rhino took no notice. "Not a chance," he said. "I won't." "This fruit is mine, all mine," he said. "I'm not afraid of you. There's nothing that I'm scared of. No one tells me what to do." Pygmy Mouse then backed away as Rhino ate some fruit. "I'm glad you know who's boss," he grinned, the greedy little brute. Mouse waved her tiny paws around. "Look out, stampede!" she cried, but Rhino would not hear a word and did not step aside. But then to Rhino's horror, as he'd barely had his fill, 100 beefy wildebeest came charging down the hill. The tree fell to the ground. "Those wildebeest have wrecked my feast," cried Rhino, "and my tree." Then Mouse said, "Rhino, who's in charge?" And Rhino said, "Not me." So Rhino learned his lesson, like all little rhinos should, and put himself in charge of being very, very good. Caterpillar Dreams by Jeanne Willis, illustrated by Tony Ross. It was dawn. A soft breeze blew. In the wild grass, 2 flowers danced. They didn't look the same, they didn't dance the same, but they danced for the same reason. They both had a secret. It was hidden in their leaves. The secret would soon be out. Eggs, mysterious eggs, not snails, not frogs. Caterpillars. 2 curly caterpillars, 1 stripy, 1 plain. We are sisters, they said. When we grow up, we will be butterflies. We will worship the sun. Day by day they grew. By night, they dreamed of all the things they would do when they were butterflies. They would wake to the song of the blackbird and fly through skies of forget-me-not blue. They would sip from buttercups, flit through sunbeams, and bathe in gold dust. The days grew long, the caterpillars grew longer. It won't be long now, they said. We will be butterflies, beautiful butterflies, sisters under the sun. The bees were leaving, the flowers turned to seed. When the sun sleeps, we will sleep, the caterpillars said. When we wake, our dreams will all come true. The bees left, the flowers fell, the sun went down, just as the caterpillars hoped. But nature had her own hopes, her own dreams, which were not the same as theirs. The sun came up, the first sister woke, but she was alone. She flew through skies of forget-me-not blue. She searched among the sunbeams, but her sister wasn't there. The sun set, a nightingale sang, lullaby, butterfly, the butterfly slept. In her dream she saw her sister. She had woken to the owl. She was worshipping the moon, soaring through space, skipping through moonbeams, bathing in stardust. Dawn came, where dark meets day they met. One was a moth and one was a butterfly. Different dreams, but just as beautiful. We cannot all be butterflies, it seems. The world needs moths just like it needs the moon. That's what keeps it turning, turning, turning. Same lullaby, it's just a different tune. Sweet dreams. Boas Bad Birthday by Jeanne Willis. Illustrated by Tony Ross. It was Boas' birthday. It was going to be the best one ever, or so he hoped. He invited his friends round. They would all bring him wonderful presents. Or would they? Orangutans was enormous. Please don't let it be what I think it is, thought Boa, but it was. A piano. Boa couldn't play it. He had no fingers. It's the thought that counts, said his mother. Orangutan clearly hadn't thought very hard, but maybe Monkey had. He was clever. Or was he? His parcel looked very interesting. You'll love it, said Monkey, but Boa didn't. It was a pair of sunglasses. Everyone's wearing them, said Monkey, but Boa wasn't. They kept slipping off. He had no ears or nose. Thanks, said Boa. They're lovely. But secretly he was deeply disappointed. Third time lucky, said his mother. Jaguar arrived with a neat package. "I hope you like them," he said. Boa hoped so too. He could hardly wait to unwrap it. "I thought they'd be useful," said Jaguar. But they weren't. They were mittens. "Do you like the colour?" asked Jaguar. "It's my favourite," said Boa. But what he really wanted to say was, "Why buy me mittens? Are you mad? I have no hands." But that would have been rude. It was kind of his friends to get him anything. Perhaps Sloth's gift would be more suitable. But it wasn't. It was a hairbrush. "It's a very good one," insisted Sloth. But it was no good for Boa. He had no hair. "Open my parcel," said Anteater. "You'll have great fun with it." But Boa didn't. It was a football. It was no fun at all. Boa couldn't kick it. He had no feet. It was Boa's worst birthday ever. All his gifts were rubbish. And just when he thought things couldn't get any worse. "Dung beetle's here," said his mother. "I bet her present is a pile of you-know-what," thought Boa. And he was right, but he was also wrong, because in the dung ball there was a seed, and when it rained it sprouted, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew into a beautiful tree. It was the perfect present for Boa. It was the right size, the right shape, and it suited Boa down to the ground. It was just what he had always wanted. So if you ever get a present that stinks, say thank you, because it might turn out to be the best present ever. Who's in the Loo? Written by Jeanne Willis. Illustrated by Adrian Reynolds. Who's in the loo? There's a very long queue. Is it an elephant having a poo? They're taking forever. Now who could it be? A whale who's doing the world's biggest wee? Is it a tiger who needed a tiddle? A wandering wombat who wanted a whittle? A waddling penguin too frozen to piddle? Is it a rhino who had a hot curry? It could be a tortoise, well, they never hurry. Whoever it is, it's a bit of a worry. Perhaps it's a hamster who can't reach the seat, or maybe a monkey who's washing his feet, or a snake who's just sitting there, sucking a sweet. Perhaps it's a poor little velvety mole who reached for the paper and fell down the bowl and is bobbing about like a damp bit of coal. Has a hippo's fat bottom got wedged in the pan? Is a rat being sick after eating a flan? Or is a cat sailing its catamaran? Who's in the loo? That's what we'd like to know. And why are they being so terribly slow? We're all getting desperate. It's our turn to go. Is it a crocodile clipping his nails? Is it a school of skunks washing their tails? Or is it a coachload of elderly snails? Perhaps it's a sloth who has fallen asleep, or is it a shepherd who's dipping his sheep, or a leopard who's changing his spots? Have a peep. Is it a stoat who's making a stink, or a pig who's washing his pants in the sink? Perhaps it's a porpoise. Well, what do you think? Who's in the loo? We just haven't a clue. Bang on the door, it's all we can do. We heard a small voice. It said, "I'm in the loo. I'm just doing what my mum told me to do. But it takes me forever. No one understands." It was Octopus washing his 8 little hands.
If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like,